I will just go ahead and throw in an announcement that we're starting. And then we can go ahead and get into some of these questions. There's actually a good amount of them, and they cover a lot of topics, so we can just jump straight into them. But before we do that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody here?
So, I see a lot of people that we already know, so I think most of you guys know who I am, but I'm one of the lead devs with SCARAB Finance. We're a senior Roche protocol that launched, well, we had our 100-day birthday, like, yesterday. We wanted to build a senior Roche protocol. We thought the concept was pretty interesting, but our vision always was that if you don't create something that adds value to your protocol, it will always eventually bottom out. I have stated many times that I don't believe in game theory, at least not anymore, to be honest. I think it has its place. It's just not able to make your protocol anti-fragile. Eventually, it's always going to rupture because everyone's here to make money. If you think you're in danger, you leave. And if everyone else starts to thinking they're in danger, they leave. So if you don't have enough real value, it's impossible to always maintain not only that the people within you are happy and wanting to stay, but that other people are joining at the same time, and enough people are joining. So our counterbalance to this is basically our idea would be to implement all of these features that would give the treasury revenue to sustain the emissions and partly collateralize at least the SCARAB token. SinSpirit was a pretty big step for us, for example, and yeah, we're just focused on building things that will make SCARAB not just a Ponzi-nomics-based token, but a real derivative financial asset that gives you a share, entitles you to a share of what we built around this protocol, essentially.
Yeah, I think that sounds very interesting. So I think that was obviously a great introduction. So with that, let's go ahead and pop into some questions. I actually do see that some people in the audience are already raising their hands. So just so I can give everyone a brief breakdown of how we're going to do this. So there are the pre-submitted questions. So we're going to go ahead and go through all of those pre-submitted questions, and everyone in the audience is going to have an opportunity to come up and talk to the developer directly. But let's just go into the first question. So this name is in Japanese, I believe, so I cannot read it, but this person is asking, there are many different tomb forks in the world, and P3 LP firms are often implemented. Personally, I think it is an LP with little benefit to the project. SCARAB has not introduced an LP farm. What do you think about this LP?
He means the PEGS token share LP?
That's what he seems to mean.
Well, so we did introduce it. It's just not internally on SCARAB itself. So we had our community ask us for this for a while, and we opposed it vehemently for a while because we thought, basically our thought was it doesn't really make sense to make that LP if it's just going to be, farming GSCARAB. So I'm just adding another Ponzi-nomic pool, but it's not really going to help. And it didn't really click with us. We didn't like the idea. We thought it was a gimmicky move, and at best it delayed some problems, and at worst it made them more dangerous after a while. It's not sustainable. What we did think is we're making governance models, and we're trying a different approach. Let's try to focus on giving our community what they wanted, which is a SCARAB GSCARAB pool. At the same time, give ourselves a revenue stream and basically create this pool on Spirit Swap and use our governance to get gauge emissions there. Later, we managed to get access to gauge emissions as well on Solidly. So there is a SCARAB GSCARAB pool on SolidX and on OXDAO as well. Again, the reason that we did this is because we saw that our community wanted something and we wanted to give it to them. It's just, we couldn't give it to them in the immediate way that they wanted because it was just not smart. It wasn't sustainable and it was going to kill us. So we thought we would have a different approach, and because we're trying to differentiate ourselves and actually add value, it was actually a pretty solid way of giving ourselves revenue as well. Because SCARAB and GSCARAB are two tokens that I really do not have a lack of. We have a lot of them. I mean, we get them all the time. So we can't really sell them. We've always had an issue because we cannot divest from SCARAB to invest in other protocols and generate revenue because, well, that would obviously affect the price too much. So essentially, we created a way so that we can use our SCARAB and GSCARAB to then get revenue if necessary for buybacks. And so, yeah, we do have that pool. It's just not internal.
That makes sense. So Camp33SS asks, your partnership with Spirit Swap seems to have paid off big time between SinSpirit and Boosted Gauges. Do you have plans to further integrate with their V2? How can SCARAB supercharge InSpirit accrual to become the largest holder and emissions voter?
Okay, so we do actually plan to integrate somewhat with Spirit V2. Like, we cannot reveal too much. There's a lot that is still unrevealed, not just on our side, but on their side for V2. So our own V2 is going to have something to click with theirs. We cannot, like, as I said, it's not just that this is classified information for us, it's also classified information for them. But yeah, we plan to continue this integration. We've always thought that Spirit was a great bet for us. It's been a very profitable partnership, and we hope to continue it and to continue strengthening it. And it is a goal. We are looking into ways to actually accrue more in Spirit, and obviously this revolves around helping the peg of SinSpirit so that we can start minting tokens for ourselves. This is something that we're going to be addressing in our V2 launch. The model is going to be changed a little bit. There's going to be a bit... The system is going to overhaul SinSpirit. SinSpirit is no longer going to be minted, which will diminish sell pressure, and then after that, the team will be buying and burning SinSpirit. I can't reveal much of how that's all going to work because it's just not something that we want to reveal yet. We're going to be revealing everything about V2 in the upcoming weeks to closer to launch, but we don't want to share too much of our secrets yet. We don't want to get copied, and we don't want to get front run on certain things. We're looking into bringing some things that are not on Phantom yet, and yeah, we're excited to bring it out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. You definitely don't want to be front ran when you're trying to implement some new aspects to your protocol. So I think that definitely makes sense. But the next question, and it's actually from the same asker. And basically they say, I listened to your AMA on Tulip DAO a long time ago, and remember you speaking about an arbitrage bot as another innovative way to boost the treasury holdings. Is this still in the works? Any other alpha on revenue streams that you're considering?
Actually, I had teased because sometimes I like to tease some things on Twitter about this. Basically, the situation with the arbitrage bot was the following. After we launched, there was a lot of things we wanted to do, and we wanted to continue developing the bot. In fact, it was one of the principal points when we launched SCARAB. We got to a situation where we realized it was going to take an immense amount of manpower, and at the time, things were so chaotic that we had to bring stuff out fast, and it just wasn't something that we could afford to put as much resources as we needed to at the time. That said, we always wanted to build it. It's just we kind of got sidetracked with a lot of development work that needed to be done. But we hired a dev and hired a consultant to pick up where we left off. And actually, the arbitrage bot has run its first profitable transaction yesterday. There is a lot of changes that are still going to need to be implemented, still a lot of optimizations. It still needs to run on a cloud, so it's faster. We need to implement cross-pair transactions. We need to clean up a little bit of the code. to make it a little smoother. The skeleton is already there. Smart contracts are already developed. There are some steps that still need to be taken, but I actually expect the arbitrage bot to be at least working in a beta version within 2 weeks. That said, basically the way we're going to approach this, once we have the first beta version of our arbitrage bot running, we will publish the contract address so people can see that the bot is working and making transactions and all of that. We are going to be using that revenue to support the treasury. Later on down the line, when we have more development work done on it, when it's more complete, and when we have a little bit more time after V2 probably, what we're going to be rolling out into it is the farms that we wanted to implement, where people will be able to single stake their Phantom. If we implement the bot to be trading on USDC pairs as well, they can single stake their USDC and earn rewards from the bot by providing liquidity to it. There's still a lot of specifics that need to be hashed out before we implement it. We had a little bit of a mapping testing run done, but I think since we've gained so much more experience since the time we launched, I think the model for the arbitrage bot farms can still be quite improved from the initial version that was supposed to be launched at an earlier date. But yeah, it's not forgotten. In fact, we're advancing more now than ever. Yeah, we expect to have a working version sooner rather than later. It's always hard to promise dates, so I really won't, just because you know how it is with the dev work. There's delays, certain things can happen, and sometimes things just take a while to figure out. And an arbitrage bot is actually a quite complex task, so it's not one of those things where you can't just crack it up and code it, and it's beyond the level of the majority of developers. So it's too complex of a task to just throw around that you can make it easy, so I can't promise dates, but we are closer than we've ever been.
That sounds good. The next question from Electric BTC. Hi, is this the channel to post questions about SCARAB Finance? This is the one question I am qualified to answer. Yes, this is the channel. Use this channel in order to post questions, and we will definitely get to them. The next question that I think is more for you is from Camp33SS, and he asks, it's rare for a team to dox, especially video AMA docs like Pharaoh. Do you think this is a necessary foundation for trust? What other methods have you used to become one of the more trusted projects on Phantom?
Well, I absolutely do think so. The matter of doxing was actually something that we debated internally. I was a little bit more open to it. Initially, none of us wanted to do it. Then when I had some more contact with the community in the very beginning, we sort of realized that if we wanted to get some trust, we would have to do it. At least someone in the team would have to do it. Me and another one of our team members, the Mummy, decided that we would do it. We did an AMA with the Tulip DAO. It was the very first time some people saw us on camera. But then I decided to take it a little bit of a step further, have an AMA over at a YouTube channel, the Crypto Gentleman, and do it with a cam on as well. To me, the reason I decided to do it was twofold. First, I saw that people need to know who's in charge. Well, even if they just know who's in charge of their money, or at least who they're putting their money in, they can at least have a more personal connection in the sense that I've seen who you are. You're not just a random person that could be anywhere and telling me anything and just disappear tomorrow because you deleted Discord. At least if I know your face, if I know your name, at least I can try to have some sort of recourse, right? DeFi is a dangerous place. We know it's fucking littered with rugs. It's something that I am very, very angry about a lot of the time. I knew that people were going to need to have some trust in us if we ever were going to build anything successful in DeFi. We decided that was worth a chance because this is something that we wanted to do long term. It's what we love to do. And we thought, Look, if we fail, we failed, but we will always be honest, and we will always do everything that we can. If we're always going to be honest, if we're going to do our part, if we're going to do what we promised, if we're going to do, act with some level of integrity, then I don't really have to be afraid of people knowing my identity. Obviously, it has some bad parts. It's not. I never really wanted to be a public figure, even though it's obviously to a very limited extent. I'm not a celebrity, but it's I never wanted to have any sort of public figure at all, sort of things. But it comes with the territory a little bit. If you're trying to build a project, people will want to know who you are, and this is going to be my career. Like I said, even if we fail, we don't have any intentions of stopping. So we thought that building a reputation was important as well, because if we're serious about being devs in DeFi, if we're serious about being devs on Phantom, if we're serious about building projects and building things that we think are cool and that we think could be successful and useful, then why would we be afraid of sharing who we are? Because, we plan on being in this space for a while.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And obviously, it's good to have a project where you're willing to dox yourself. And just personally, in terms of my investments, I know that I prefer to invest in a project when some of the team members are doxed. But this brings us to our next question from Electric BTC, who's asking, they have 3 questions, so we'll go through all 3 of them. But the first question is, when SCARAB's over the peg, I guess he says you guys, I guess that means your team recommends creating the SCARAB Phantom LP and farming it to get GSCARAB. But also, GSCARAB has a maximum supply of 70,001. So how can the strategy be carried out when GSCARAB reaches this limit?
Okay, so he's asking what is our solution to the end of emissions, right?
Yeah.
If people see what we've been doing, they can sort of get an idea. Our goal is to incentivize holding SCARAB Phantom through governance and through value from financial services offered. DeFi 2.0 is a revolution, and it's actually an adaptation that can really help a senior Ash protocol. Providing use cases is the only way to actually be able to get your peg token to maintain utility after shares end. But at the same time, what our plan is to basically, as we grow out our revenue, as we grow out our treasury, as it becomes bolstered, the more SCARAB Phantom LP and the higher percentage of SCARAB Phantom LP we can own ourselves. So the goal would be that we can guarantee a price just by being able to support, being able to back a lot of the SCARAB that is in circulation with Phantom. And then from that point, even if there was, let's say, emissions end, people leave SCARAB Phantom LP to go to whatever the hell they want to do. Okay. If we have, let's say, 3 different staking options for them and different platforms. We have lending options in several platforms for single-sided staking with decent APRs. If we add SCARAB to, well, I would like to reveal some parts now of V2, but I cannot, so I will have to stay quiet on this last one. But if we do all of that and also have enough Phantom in the treasury and enough Phantom in the liquidity pool that is owned by us at our disposal, even if there's a mass dump, first there's utility still, so not everyone's going to leave because some of them can still yield. And the rest of them who do they can leave. We will hold whatever's left. Our people can still yield, and then we can continue to do buybacks with the revenue that we do get to continue to bolster SCARAB back to peg even after a dump. And then I think it just becomes a game of you generate revenue, put yourself over peg, shares print, go under peg. And then you generate revenue until you get back up to peg and just continue going that way. The reality of this is that at the end of this, it's not, people get confused because they think, well, a senior Ash protocol should maintain 500% APR, 700% APR on their peg token forever, which isn't realistic and it doesn't make sense. If I create a protocol that is sustainable, if it lasts the whole year and it behaves like Phantom, the risk that people are seeing with that token is way lower than before, because when they're looking at it, and if they really feel like they can actually be single staking Phantom, then I just gave them the best option in the world. I'm giving them the best option to lend my token, which is single staking Phantom for higher APRs. I mean, you can see on Pharaoh, like TOMB, for example. So if I'm giving them something that is like single staking Phantom, but with a higher APR than any other single staking option, which you can expect at like a solid 15% at best, by giving you this parallel liquidity and providing this utility through my governance models, you're looking at essentially no risk. And an 80% APR in single staking Phantom is insane. That is amazing for a whale if they can actually have that trust. So building out stability is the absolute key, and at the same time wean people out of degenerate APRs, because that's just not something that makes any sense at all. Yeah, I think that is how you can maintain incentives into SCARAB Phantom LP holding, is by making sure that through time your stability becomes enough that it is reasonable to say you are a parallel of Phantom.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. Sorry. Second question is, there's some plan to automate the entire procedure of the recommended strategies for when SCARAB is over the peg and when it is under the peg. They're basically referring to the creation of a special vault that automatically executes the recommendations found in the documents. So, so I guess they're basically asking about whether or not that would be a possibility, or if that was something that was planned, or I guess any comments on that.
We had actually thought of this before. It's possible, for sure. It's just not something that you can enforce like mandatorily. You could create a vault for this. It would be basically a customized strategy vault. It isn't necessarily easy to code, but it's not impossible. It's not that difficult. It's something that we've talked about. It's just we're so focused right now on V2 and value creation and revenue generation that some of those optimizations to the Ponzi-nomics game are sort of falling a little bit to the wayside when we have, a limited amount of resources, so we kind of have to pick our battles. But we have actually thought of it. It's just a matter of things falling in the pipeline for a little later. But it's actually been a consideration, just because it allows people to just set it and forget it, make profits. The strategy can take profits for them as well. At the same time, you follow a strategy that we know always helps to peg. So it's something that we could do, especially because a lot of times uninformed users can cause more damage to the protocol than good. To be honest, the problem with creating a vault like this is that it's not necessarily the time it takes to code it. It's more that it doesn't really generate that much in value immediately, but it does have a cost, and it takes a while because we would need to have that audited to launch it, as it's a quite complex strategy, so it could be, open exploits. So it's not something that's very simple to just launch, you know what I mean?
Right, that definitely makes sense. This is the last question from the same asker. So in addition to the strategies recommended in the documentation, is there any others that you recommend? And if so, could you tell us what those strategies are and in which situations they would be recommended?
I don't know if we posted it yet. We're developing a strategy for our community to follow when below peg. It's very simple. When below peg, people would stock up on their SCARAB Phantom LP, sell some of their GSCARAB actually for SCARAB and GSCARAB sell their GSCARAB Phantom, break their GSCARAB Phantom LP pairs, use the Phantom to buy SCARAB Phantom LP, use the GSCARAB to buy SCARAB GSCARAB LP, then use all the SCARAB GSCARAB LP that you got to stake on OXDAO, Solidex, or Spirit Swap, and a percentage on our vault or on Reaper's vault. Using the rewards that you get from the farms in OXDAO or Solidex, take profits from that, and that way you can always divest a little bit, and with time, make sure that your initial investment is completely secured. And at the same time, take the rest of the rewards, compound them into more SCARAB GSCARAB. You help the price action for us. You compound your rewards or compound into SCARAB Phantom LP. Again, if you want to compound your SCARAB Phantom position, and you help us out because you create some buy pressure on the peg, you still take some profits for yourself, and you sort of, just create buy pressure by using yield optimizers and SCARAB GSCARAB. You put buy pressure on both of our tokens, which also helps a lot.
Right, that makes sense. The next question is from Pharaoh, which is, how are you going to manage to peg SinSpirit?
As I've said, V2 is going to include the stopping minting SinSpirit entirely. After that, there will be an allocation for buying and burning SinSpirit. The team will actually be burning most of our SinSpirit over time as well, while we buy it more and burn more as well. All of this with the intention of basically lowering the supply enough that we can also, control the situation a little bit more. At the same time, we're going to be using governance to open pools for SinSpirit Spirit. It's one of our goals, but we have other priorities right now, to be honest. There's a few other things in front of us right now, but at least in terms of those farms. For SinSpirit Spirit, V2 is going to come out with something that will help quite a lot, and we have something going on with JuiceDAO, where SinSpirit Spirit will be leverageable in their money markets, which means there will also be a single staking SinSpirit option for their lending pools. So this should also help a little bit because it gives some extra utility to use SinSpirit and some extra options in that regard. But we have a lot more in the works when V2 comes in.
Of course, and so I guess the next series of questions are basically about the relationship between SCARAB Finance and TOMB. So the first one would be, what motivated you to create SCARAB when TOMB and some other forks of it already exist?
Well, we were one of the first TOMB forks to launch. We did not really expect there to be the mania that there was and the amount of TOMB forks that there were launching. Yeah, we created SCARAB because we thought the TOMB protocol was quite interesting. It's an interesting concept, and we thought there were reworks and improvements that could be done to basically as an experiment to try to do this without billionaire backing. And the way we thought we would do it is, as I've said, real value creation around it. It just clicked because we thought that value creation with parallel liquidity paired so well, because you're using your liquidity that you're creating that's parallel to Phantom to generate revenue and value around it and through it. And it just seemed like an interesting concept because should you succeed, eventually you have your own, well, not stable coin, but just parallel coin, where kind of hard to call most senior Roche protocols pegged tokens a true parallel, because they're just not. I mean, when you see a bank run and the peg just disappears in days, you know that it's not realistic to call it that. But it is our belief that if you have collateral created by the treasury, by value, and you have mechanisms to incentivize holding and burning and controlling supply, then you really do have a collateralized token that actually does mirror the price of Phantom. And having an ecosystem around that was just a thought experiment that we thought we could take to a big level, and we decided to take our shot. And it went well. I mean, we're one of the longest running tomb forks out there. It's quite a challenge. Running a senior protocol is very stressful, but it's a challenge that is also a lot of fun. It's one of those things where it is hard, obviously, and it can create a lot of pain sometimes, but it's quite rewarding. I mean, it's changing our lives. All of us, we're university students, and right now, this is all we do. I'm thinking at least of quitting university and dedicating myself full time to DeFi. So it's quite fantastic because DeFi changed our lives, and yeah, it kind of gave us a path to follow, and we thought, I guess we just saw an opportunity and decided to follow it, and it went well.
Right. Yeah, I think that's, obviously very, very motivational. The next questions were kind of, similar. It was kind of about value added to Tomb, and then the question after that, which was in the same series, was kind of about the parallels between SCARAB and Phantom, and I think you've touched upon both those pretty well. So we'll go to the question underneath, which basically is about some of the functionality of SCARAB V2. So basically what's being asked is, SCARAB V2 is incoming with lots of features dropping. Are these features going to be dropped one by one, or are they all going to be released on launch day with full functionality?
No, we wish we could launch V2 piecemeal, at least part ways, because at least it would give people like bullish announcements, constant bullishness, which sometimes it does take the bread and circuses to make people continue to join in. But the whole system just needs to be launched and fully. Like, it needs everything. It's quite complex. It's not something that we can drop piecemeal. There are still some updates that we're going to launch before V2 arrives. The NFTs are one of them. So don't worry, there's things dropping before V2. But no, V2 is, at least as we're seeing it, is not something that we can launch in pieces. It will come out, and when it does, it will have everything included in functioning. It will also have a full rework of the website, not just, well, we hope our gamified UI comes out by then, but if not, there's also a complete reskin of our current website. It's actually been worked on by a graphic designer. It's being worked on for a while now by a graphic designer. We wanted it to be quite different. We're trying to use everything, including the reskin of the website and V2, as a separator from Seniorage, where we see that the brand of a tomb fork is not a good one. After so many rugs and so many crashes and so many collapses, the brand of being a Seniorage protocol and what is associated with it, or at least the brand of a tomb fork, is not good because there's so many low quality rugs out there. So what we are trying to do with V2 and then with that reskin of the website is that we just want to kind of change and pivot away from it aggressively. So V2 is coming tooled in with everything because we want to make sure that when people look at SCARAB, nobody will be able to say that we're just another tomb fork.
I think that makes a lot of sense as well. So I guess kind of in terms of differentiating yourself from other tomb forks, that kind of leads well into the next question. So Zipdu asks, some other tomb forks have attempted to add more revenue sources. They give the example of NFT games, but they still haven't managed to hang around. So why do you think no other tomb fork has been able to show that sustainability, which has been shown by SCARAB?
Well, I can answer that question with very simple maths. Let's say, well, in my experience, you can spend $30,000-$40,000 in a single day, just battling the peg. In a bad day, you can spend way more than that. It's a game of big numbers. It does take a lot of money. It's not cheap to sustain a senior rush protocol. It's just not. Creating some game and hoping that will save your senior rush protocol and hope that will maintain it. Well, you better have a damn good game, because it takes a lot of money. It's not easy. It's really selling some NFTs, if you're getting bank run, can cover a few whales leaving at best. So you can't just count on that. You need extra staking options. You need extra utility. You need things that remove sell pressure at the same time as they create a lot more revenue. And like we don't even look at it as sort of SinSpirit is enough to hold the peg. We don't even look at it as this next game is going to hold the peg. We don't look at it as this next feature is going to hold the peg. We look at it as, if we build an entire ecosystem, an entire complex, really and deep ecosystem with a lot of value within it, then you can hold a senior rush protocol that is growing, because it really does take an immense amount of resources, and the more revenue you generate, the more you can expand that supply, but have it be revenue driven. If people are aping in and the supply is increasing, that's fine, all good and dandy. But in reality, those people can always sell, and massively and rapidly expanding the supply into the hands of everyone will inevitably create massive sell pressure down the line. If you're above peg for, let's say, a month and a half or two, even if you have the money to burn like that, to continue and to maintain that, what happens afterwards, right? So I think the games are a little bit of a gimmick. I would have a hard time believing they generate more than $1,000 daily. Maybe in the NFT sales, they generate a little bit more money, like $100,000 or $150,000. But like, that is nothing. That is just nothing. It won't last you a week if you have any good size, and people start selling. It really doesn't matter. $100,000 is not much money when you're talking about holding a senior rush protocol. The treasury right now is sitting at, $500,000? I wish it had a lot more. I think the games are a gimmick just because they don't. Counting on them to save you is just not realistic, is what all I'm saying.
Yeah, of course, and I think that's definitely evident in the forks that have not been able to be successful, and through the implementation of those games. The next question is: I saw your teaser tweet about liquidity mining services. Can you explain what that entails and how it ultimately contributes to the strength of the treasury? Which financial services are you considering next?
This is going to go into something that I cannot answer. All I'm going to say is we found a way, and we are modeling it and developing it to scale up the SinSpirit model to more platforms in a different, more scalable way, instead of just creating wrapped versions of their tokens, and in a way that makes a little bit more sense, and that has a stronger integration with the protocol as a whole. And that is how the liquidity mining is going to be implemented. As to the financial services that are going to be provided, you're going to have to wait a little bit and see. But yeah, I cannot reveal more on that front. I'm sorry.
I guess it is always nice to leave a little bit of mystery. So going on to a different topic. So Zupduda asks, how is your treasury managed? Do you have advisors? And if so, what type of experience do they have?
So we actually do have two advisors with some experience in TradFi. Mostly, it is managed by us, even though sometimes you do follow advice. Running a treasury for a seniorage protocol, we've noticed, is different than running it for almost any other thing, just because your end goal is not to really increase your dollar amount, it's to increase your phantom amount. That is really what you need. So it's quite different to run a treasury for a seniorage protocol than it is for most other things. Currently, our treasury is quite big in Spirit Phantom, just because we get a lot of Spirit from our yield, and it is easy to compound it and get rewards. But we've sort of taken a strategy of very low risk, slow and steady rewards in what we get for yields, just because we don't want to be exposed to being forced to lose Phantom, because any of our resources has to be disposable to help the peg at any moment. If there's a massive crash, we will need them to be available. So they cannot be stuck in a high risk asset because we're at a loss and we don't want to sell at a loss. So they're spread out like quite a bit, but we also try to that everything we put money in is very low risk, just because we can't afford to be trapped in that situation.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I guess a follow-up question to that from the same person was, do you intend to get into governance token wars for other protocols as well, or are you going to primarily keep your focus on Spirit?
I think the governance wars are just getting started. It's going to be very profitable for anyone who takes advantage of them. I've stated before that I wanted SCARAB to be a part of it, and an integral part of it. Our liquidity mining services are also a play for this. We plan on getting onto these gauge wars on every major platform that creates a governance model that we think would be attractive and that would make sense to take advantage of, because it's quite simple. These models are giving people a chance and giving protocols a chance to create utility for their tokens onto other protocols and to tether their protocols to other, successful systems. So, I think utilizing this for a seniorage protocol especially is actually quite important. It's one of the strategies that can have the most impact.
Yep, I think that definitely tracks. Let's move on to a slightly different question. So, I think this isn't something we haven't touched on yet. Can you give us some details about the Metaverse that you guys are planning to build? Additionally, can you tell us about SCARAB Finance NFTs? Will they be collectible, or will they have some utility to stake, for example?
So, yes, they will have some utility and for the NFTs. I hate using the word Metaverse because, I'm not creating Decentraland or anything like it. But what we are creating is a gamified UI where people will be able to take their NFTs there and utilize all of the SCARAB utilities. We are actually going to be including partners in our gamified UI, so not only will you be able to utilize SCARAB utilities, you will actually be able to use our partners that are in that game map you will be able to use their functionalities as well. I can't say who our partners are at this point yet, but let's just say you will be able to trade and do all sorts of stuff in our game app directly, and you will be able to hang out with the community, talk, chat, show them your NFT, brag, whatever. That is sort of the plan. We're obviously going to maintain that desert feel and that theme, but we are going to be using this as a hangout point for the community, as a cool change to further separate ourselves from the image and from the brand of a Tomb fork. And also, in the future, we are hoping to be able to even host AMAs from there and hang out with the community there. Well, obviously, Discord is never going to be replaced, but I'll sort of allow for our community to have a different place where they can interact with a little bit more of some cool stuff for them, I guess. And yeah, that is the current goal for the Gamify UI.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. I'll definitely have to check it out. Dumb Drunk Dad asks, are there any discussions on adjusting what the Treasury is buying? I fully understand why SCARAB is being bought back, but building up Treasury of more foundational assets to prop up the token over time could help during bear markets. This diversification can also be leveraged in farming, lending, etc. to gain additional rewards to the Treasury.
Well, so obviously, we agree that staking assets in the Treasury and trying to generate revenue from there is of the utmost importance. And we try to be as conservative as possible, even when buying back, just because we are always trying to avoid a point where our Treasury is broke. This happened in our bank run, and it's not something that we want to repeat. So it's not something that we will allow to happen. If we have to hold down under peg and build onto the Treasury and have money into the Treasury but continue to compound it, we will do that because, well, it is just the most effective way to guarantee that the peg is returned. It's one of those situations where obviously we would like to be over peg at all times. It's not possible when there are big dumps. Sometimes we cover them to prevent panic from spreading, or when we know that some people are stuck in us and are selling, we kind of have to hold on and let them sell off so we can buy back and not give those whales extra liquidity. So it is a bit of a game. Actually, trading on SCARAB with buybacks it actually takes a lot more active surveillance than most people would think. It's not very linear, and it kind of does take us looking at the graph all the time. Well, obviously, we would like to be able to go on without having to do buybacks and just compounding the Treasury into millions, but sometimes it is just not possible. Everyone has their own views on that. It's one of those sort of catch-22s where some people are happy, some people are unhappy, and a lot of people have asked us, why don't we do buybacks over the peg, and that way we would have to spend less money. But it's not as linear as people think sometimes, and those Treasury decisions have to be taken very, very carefully and very carefully planned out and thought out, and the math has to be done correctly on that one. It's not just something that we can throw out a random number and start doing buys and sells. It's just not how it works. There's a lot that goes into it, and we're not trading with our own money. These are not my personal funds. I can't make risky decisions with funds that are not mine. Obviously, we would like that to be possible. It's just not at times. And mostly we do that when we can, but sometimes to prevent crises, we don't. It's one of those situations where it really depends on what is happening and what are the circumstances. It kind of depends on what big wallets we know are holding SCARAB, what big wallets we know are buying, what big wallets we know are selling. So it takes a lot of circumstances. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
I think that's a very true fact. And the next question is, what happened with the project rebrand and new website? Are we getting that soon? Also, are you guys putting on hold the gamified UI? Scarabus, I think it was called. Lastly, will SCARAB V2 be considered what many are calling DeFi 2.0 or liquidity as a service?
So I think I touched on that already. There will be a new UI, fully revamped, still getting worked on. It's taking a while because we want it to be perfect. For the gamified UI, also getting worked on. We actually put a lot of pressure on our artist. He's very good, but he has a lot of things that we have him on. The Beethoven model, we actually have it ready to go. The Beethoven model is actually the only thing that we're considering laying out before V2. Possibly, we would prefer to roll it out with V2, but if it's not possible, we might roll it out before, just to get it out there faster. All of those things are still in development. We did not forget. They just take time. Dev work is not something that just happens overnight.
And of course, it sounds like a lot of things are in the works. This next question is more about, so will it be possible to use spirit-boosted farms without auto-compounding?
Yes, it will be. That's what the liquidity mining will be for.
Awesome, very straightforward there. So this is a security-based question. Hi, a lot of projects have been hacked recently. I think security is very important. Do you have plans to secure new features? Certic audit is good, but hackers don't waste their time. Do you have plans to secure the project in general?
We do. We try to be very careful with everything that we do. It kind of gets fire tested in terms of hacking and exploits a while before launch. We are going to try to get our audit for the new contracts on V2 before the launch. If necessary, some of the contracts will not be public until the audit comes out. It's true, hackers do not waste their time. It seems like there are more exploits happening by the minute. I think it comes down to the more complex systems grow, the more opportunities there will be for hackers to exploit them. A simple contract is far harder to exploit than a highly complex one. I think that trend will continue to increase as models and protocols become more complicated and more complex. We take it very seriously because hacks and exploits can be tragic. So we try to make sure that we are as airtight as can be in that regard. An audit will surely be necessary, and continuing to follow those security standards is absolutely going to be essential, for any successful DeFi project in this space nowadays.
Yeah, 100%. The next question. Please give some alpha about the recent contracts that were created containing borrowing and lending. Why did the Treasury create a BEETS pool?
The BEETS pool is because we're going to be doing bribes for that pool. We want to incentivize holding. Governance is very important. It's something that we have lined up. We'll be posting announcements about it soon. For what was the other part? Why did the Treasury create a contract with lending?
Yep, borrowing and lending.
That's classified information.
All right, we'll save that for another time then. The next question. Why do you think SCARAB has not been able to hold its peg, even with its multiple revenue streams and Phantom going up? Do you think this will be reversed soon?
There's a multitude of factors. Obviously, there were a few whales exiting. And the reason, in my opinion, is decreasing APR and the supply not having expanded massively. Obviously, price action is something that we take into account very seriously. As I have stated, we obviously would prefer to be over peg at all times, but we cannot be affected by it, and we do have to stay and develop and just work on things and improve. After 0.3 peg, to be honest, it's kind of hard to put me in a panic anymore. We've been down really bad and recovered, so I really don't panic.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be some volatility.
Yeah, we sort of, I sort of lost the sensitivity in that regard. As long as we continue to build, we can always recover.
Yep, I 100% agree with that. So the next question, I think, is definitely a pertinent question on a lot of people's minds. So what's the best way to position ourselves for V2? Should we just chill in the SCARAB Phantom LP autocompounder?
Well, this is one of those, I hate giving financial advice. But yeah, for anyone who is investing in SCARAB, the reason we tell them to always focus on SCARAB is because the only promise we make to you guys when you're coming into the protocol is SCARAB is one phantom, and it's like single staking phantom. That's the promise that we make you guys. It's not that GSCARAB is going to fly to the moon. That's not the promise that we made. The promise that we make is that you can stake single stake phantom by using SCARAB Phantom LP, and even if it should fall under peg or go over peg, in relatively short periods of time, you will always be around that level. So you will always be able to trade in and out at one peg. That is the promise that we make you. So for anyone who's asking me how they should invest and how they should be lined up to benefit, I always tell them to focus on SCARAB because it is giving you yield, and I don't provide guarantees about our shares token because I can't. My focus and my sole focus is on SCARAB and the peg. Everything else is secondary. If shares are worth 15 cents and we're at peg, okay, obviously that would be an exaggeration. But technically, let's say my job here is done. If SCARAB is at peg, we're doing our part, right? Guaranteeing that is always our priority. So anyone who's investing in our protocol should know that the biggest guarantee that we give you is that we can give you this single staking SCARAB option from SCARAB Phantom LP, and that is the most risk-free way of benefiting from the protocol.
Yep, that definitely makes sense. I know this is something you already touched upon. The next question is kind of about NFTs and where you see the NFT space going in terms of SCARAB. The question is, are they thinking about developing something in the NFT space? I know you kind of already clarified something about that vaguely, but maybe you want to go into it a little bit more specifically.
So we are launching an NFT collection with a gamified UI and a game. We've wanted to do the NFTs because they're a great way of attracting people, getting some hype going. It's a great marketing maneuver. It gives something cool to the community. And we thought it would be quite interesting of having a hub in our platform where people could hang out and have their NFTs, their SCARAB NFTs, and the SCARAB community could have that. We thought it would be cool. We just wanted to use this as a chance to give something to our community that has a little bit of a different value than just come here to print money, which is normally what SCARAB is about, right? We thought it would be a good way to use this as a marketing maneuver at the same time. So it's sort of a give back to our community and a cool change from normal tomb fork system and just another one of the tomb forks, and it further separates us. And at the same time, it allows us to give back to our community.
Of course, I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. I'll be looking forward to those myself. And the last question is from Forgiving. He asks, will SCARAB V1 still have utility? Will SCARAB V2 be built on top of the currently existing tokens, or will new tokens be created?
Oh, Forgiving here, giving me a hard question that I cannot answer. I will say this, there will be a new token being created, and that is already saying too much. Yeah.
I mean, at least, a little bit of alpha came out. You can say you heard it here first, that WhatTheFork, a new token will be created. But that was the last of the prepared questions. At this point, we'd like to invite anybody up from the audience. if you have any additional questions, I always say this, it's pretty rare that you have an opportunity to speak directly with a developer for a project that you invest in. Personally, if you're thinking about more TradFi stuff, if you're investing in a company, like if I'm investing in Walmart or Coca-Cola, you're never really going to have the opportunity to speak to the CEO. So I always think this is like an amazing opportunity to really come face to face with the person who is at the head of a project that we're all invested in. So if any of you guys want to raise your hand at this point, or request to speak, I guess it's called, then I'll be able to invite you guys up and you can, ask any questions. If you're not comfortable with that, of course, you can still put the questions in the SCARAB Finance AMA channel, but we will just be hanging out for the next few minutes, no specific agenda, waiting for those requests to come in.
People are always shy in this one, in this part.
Yeah, that's something that, I've also noticed, and if that just means we're going to spend the next 10 minutes talking to each other, I hope you don't mind my company too much.
No, I don't mind it at all, man. Let me change my microphone from push to talk to, normal. Okay, much better.
So you were a university student when you made SCARAB?
Yeah, so I'm still a university student, technically. But yeah, I am in my last year of tech and business management. It's a 4-year degree, and it's actually where I learned to code, where I met the rest of the team in university and started learning Solidity because of 2 of the members.
Yeah, actually, we do have another question in the chat. So, Cryptic Magic asks, do you have any plans of integrating investments with outside crypto investments? Any further plans on solidifying the treasury?
Well, I think outside crypto investments, he's talking about synthetics. Actually, I think there's so much potential in that market. We did bounce around a few ideas, but to be honest, it's really not something that's fleshed out yet. We do love that market. I think it's so interesting. It really does bring something really cool to DeFi, because the opportunity to trade in stocks and commodities, ETFs, and maybe even having your own customizable index funds in a synthetic crypto asset would be incredible, because it's so much easier to trade in DeFi than it is to trade in stocks in the stock market, and giving it that infrastructure gives even traditional investors a reason to come to DeFi and to come to crypto, because it allows them to not be really exposed to crypto and to market fluctuations in that space, but still enjoy the advantages that decentralized networks and decentralized finance offer, the anonymity and the advantages of having instant trading. We can complain all we want, but at least, in DeFi, the markets don't close ever. It makes it a lot more seamless, and I think there's so much potential there. There's a lot that I would like to do in that area. It is not something that we have mapped out yet at all, to be honest. It's just something that we discussed, and we did bounce around a few ideas, but nothing is fleshed out enough to bring to the public yet.
Right, and the next question is, what do we need to look forward to for SCARAB in the shortest time frame, meaning this week and next week? What do we have to look forward to?
We are going to be doing bribes for the Beethoven pool, so an extra staking option for SCARAB Phantom. This is an 80-20 SCARAB Phantom pool. The goal here will be to provide a almost single staking option for SCARAB that makes sense. It will allow for people to use their not dump SCARAB rewards, and at the same time give them a reason to go buy SCARAB to yield BEETS, and provide our users with an extra staking option that, again, isn't coming from within the protocol. It also gives the protocol another revenue stream. We're gonna be betting on Beethoven for the next gauge emission. We're gonna be continuing doing some reveals on SCARAB. Then next week, we are actually planning to start a weekly show on SCARAB where we're going to be bringing guests, and we're going to start next week. It's a show for discussing the state of DeFi in general, give you some updates on SCARAB and things like that, and have a little bit more touch with our community. I was gone in terms of AMAs and things like that for a while because I was sick, and then a lot of development stuff had pulled us aside. So it's been hard to really communicate with community as regularly as usual. So we're going to be bolstering that presence in a short time frame, and we are hoping that the NFTs can come out in 2 to 3 weeks. At the same time, we might have the pre-beta version of our arbitrage bot and publish that contract for the arbitrage bot in 2 weeks' time to a week's time. Hopefully, if we can have that piece together, we will start posting announcements about it, and we'll make sure people know, and we will provide the proof in the form of our contract. It will obviously not be published because I am not Mother Teresa, and I'm not giving the contract to an arbitrage bot publicly to everyone to see it. It's not really something that we want to give out. Yeah, there's a few updates before V2 to come. We made sure when we're making sure to not give people too long of an ETA and too long of a wait time on updates.
Yep, I think that makes sense. The next question is, do you have a plan to create another token pegged to SCARAB?
I have already stated too much. I cannot continue to explain some of these details about V2. I will have to refrain from answering that question.
So, another question, I'm not sure if you want to touch on this, but they're asking, without being specific, can you offer reassurance that OG SCARAB won't be left behind when V2 goes live?
No, the goal is and always will be to help the SCARAB peg. Investors of that new token's assurance, it's easier to explain this when I can, actually reveal what the protocol will consist in, but users of that token can be rest assured, because to help them, SCARAB must be helped, and at the same time, for them, they benefit if SCARAB is healthy, and SCARAB benefits if that token is healthy. So the new token is going to have sort of a symbiotic relationship. Now, again, really disclose anymore, but no, we are not gonna set aside SCARAB or leave it to the wayside. That's not the goal. The goal is to help it with this new token.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess that was the last question. I want to thank you so much for stopping by here and doing this AMA with us.
Oh, my pleasure. It's a lot of fun, and I know the community loves it, and it's always cool to share some stuff. We have a lot of updates that we wanted to get into, and we want to start showing sneak peeks to our community of what's to come for SCARAB and what the future holds. So
I'll go ahead and drop an invite link to your Discord in this chat in case anyone wants to follow up with you. But I think we had a really good conversation, and I think you did a really good job. So hopefully we can do this again soon.
My pleasure, man. Thank you so much. You're a much better interviewer than I am.
Well, thank you, and thank you guys all for coming, and hopefully we can all keep in contact. I'll see you guys around, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye, guys. Thank you guys for coming, everyone.